All right, by now we are all well versed with Dr. Erica Chenoweth's 3.5% rule. Although I notice a lot of people still seem to misunderstand it. It is descriptive, not proscriptive. I think a lot of people are looking for this magic number of Americans who attend a protest, right? Somewhere between 11 and 12 million. And that would be the threshold to reach that 3.5% rule. But the 3.5% rule is not like how many people show up to a protest on a single day. What Dr. Chenoweth's work shows is that when at least 3.5% of the population is engaged in sustained strategic resistance against an authoritarian regime, that regime is cooked. As long as we keep fighting, they can't win. Right? This is very much why my mentality is not, I will not obey in advance. My mentality is, fuck you, make me. I'm not fucking bending the knee. I don't know about y'all. I'm not doing it. Anytime there's a big protest scheduled, I see people really pushing, we got to get a certain number of people out in the streets. And then that will be the magic number. And I think early on, when we look back at April 5th hands off, people thought if we got enough people out in the streets on that day that, I don't know, like Donald Trump would lay down and give up. He would do the thing that he wants us to do. But that's because a lot of people were very new to the concept of the 3.5% rule, and now we all understand it better. Nonetheless, having an accurate count of who attends a protest, having accurate data that we can share, that is powerful. Data is power. That's one of the reasons I'm such a big fan of the Strength in Numbers blog. Right, when you bring the data, it can be persuasive, especially when you present it in a way that is really visually appealing and people can grasp very quickly. Data is not always going to convince people who are in a cult and, are having that confirmation bias where they really need to conform everything that they see or perceive to their worldview, right? Where if they were to start to question what's happening, they would, decompensate. But for a lot of people, especially folks who are not deep in the cult of MAGA, but maybe they're listening to some Fox News or they're really checked out, data can be really persuasive. And also, data is necessary because the regime lies through their teeth, right? We know that what we hear from corporate media that is now acting as a propaganda arm of the regime is going to be absolute horseshit. It's like how Donald Trump is still trying to tell people that his approval rating is 70-something%, how he's always grossly exaggerated the number of attendees at his events. But the regime is absolutely operating out of this post-truth mindset where whatever they say is completely divorced from reality. They just want you to believe it, not because it's true, but because they said it. But the American people really, really overwhelmingly are starting to reject post-truth politics and are starting to see through the bullshit. It's a big part of the reason that Mike Johnson and the Republicans' desperate efforts to paint No King's Day as some kind of violent, anti-American, Antifa terrorist event are just not landing. Right, as the resistance is growing, at some point, and I think we're at that point now, the regime has to become more desperate. They are panicked. They can see that there are big cracks forming everywhere. They can see that the American people are rising up. And the only thing that they can do to stop us is to escalate their rhetoric. They have to try harder and harder and harder to scare us into giving up. And at some point, it becomes absurd. At some point, their rhetoric is an insult to our intelligence. Which is why techniques like we're using here in Portland, Oregon are so important. By the way, thank you to Brenna for introducing me to the term tactical frivolity. Yep, that's exactly what we're doing here. Using imagery to counter the lies of the regime. Imagery is only one facet of that. We can also bring data. And gosh, I realize I'm really burying the lead here. But if you were going to No King's Day on Saturday, could you please consider becoming a crowd counter? 5051 has the We Count project. You can find it at WeCountProject.com. We need people getting an accurate head count of how many of us are turning out. It would be lovely if we hit the 3.5%. I think just for our own morale, right? And that's symbolic. That says there are so many more people resisting the regime than are going to be able to come to No King's Day, right? I have family members who are not going to be able to attend. There were people at the Craftivism event that I went to last night that have to work. They have other caregiving obligations. They're sick with COVID. By the way, check your state. The estimates here in Oregon are 1 in 30 people have COVID. So we're going to be all packed in tight together. Let's engage in community care and not get each other sick. I always wear a mask in public. But let's not have No Kings be an event where we get our elders and we get disabled folks and children exposed to COVID. Anyway, so there's a lot of people who can't actually turn out on October 18th. So if we were to hit 3.5% of people in the streets, those people are backed by millions and millions more who couldn't attend that particular day but are engaged in sustained resistance. So getting that threshold met, 3.5% of the population, is symbolic. It's not a magic number that's going to make the regime step down, but it is an important marker. And that's why we want to have accurate data, right? We have the folks here in Portland who are putting out the symbols and are doing that kind of tactical countering of the rhetoric of the regime through imagery, through nonviolent resistance, through our behavior. And let's add some more to that. Let's add that data. So please consider going to WeCountProject.com and signing up to be a counter. Also, I encourage you to just spend some time on We Count Project's website because they have a dashboard that's interactive where you can explore the counts that were done previously. And keep in mind, for No King's Day 2, there are hundreds more events scheduled than for the first No King's Day. Some of the other interesting data that you can track through the We Count Project is whether there were arrests or injuries, whether there was property damage. And this is really, really good evidence to counter the false narrative of the regime that we are like violent Antifa terrorists. 99.8% of No King's Day 1 events had no injuries. 99.4% of them had no arrests. And the arrests that we do know of are overwhelmingly counter-protesters. 99.8% of the events had no property damage. These are overwhelmingly peaceful, nonviolent, non-destructive events that are family-friendly, that are regular, everyday Americans exercising our constitutionally protected right to free speech. And we've got the data to disprove the lies of the regime. We're all going to turn out in our silly costumes on Saturday. We're all going to have bright colors, right? They want you to dress in all black. They want you to look like what Fox News paints as an Antifa terrorist. So we're not going to give them that. We're going to deprive them of that. We're going to be celebratory. We're going to dress up. We're going to join with millions and millions of other people and see if we can hit that 3.5% threshold. Maybe we'll surpass it. And please understand that when those people turn out for No King's Day, many of them will be protesting for the first time. This is a chance to get them plugged in, drawn in, onboarded, build those relationships so they can be part of the sustained resistance that we need, that involves so much more than just protests. This is the welcome them to the party, right? And then be like, okay, you're joining the cool kids club. Let's get you connected with all of these other really awesome ways that you can defend your own liberty and protect your community. Okay, so please go to WeCountProject.com. See if you can become a counter for the protests on Saturday. Comb through all of that data. See if any of it is helpful for the messaging for your grassroots organization. Realize that imagery is powerful. Realize that nonviolence is powerful. And realize that bringing the data is another layer. Building our collective power as the resistance, the opposition movement against fascism, as a truly American movement. We are democracy-loving, freedom-loving Americans, and we'll all be out in the streets on Saturday, October 18th.